And I'm Catherine Hartridge.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
And we are today having lunch at Ionie's Caribbean Kitchen, which is located at 1142 Athens Highway in Grayson, Georgia.
And today we are interviewing Segun Adeyina. And Segun is currently running for State House District 110. And Segun, tell us a little bit about the district that you're running in and why you're running.
Well, first of all, Ionie is in my district.
Okay.
I've been coming here since 2014. So you guys picked an excellent spot to come. Great Caribbean food. So I've lived in the district since I moved from Michigan for the last 8 years. And it's very diverse population, people from different walks of life and backgrounds. Great schools. My kids have gone to school here. That's why we picked the district. Primarily making sure that kids get a great education. And in being involved in the community, not just from an education standpoint, but in the interest to see the growth that's happened. That is one of the reasons why I stepped up. Said, I'm going to run. I'm going to represent the interests of the community.
Okay. Yeah, so speaking of that, you said we're going to run. What are some of the things you plan on doing to help the community on that platform?
Well, so my background naturalized as a Nigerian American 06. And being an immigrant naturalized in the U.S., one of the things that was very key to me is having the right to vote. That's something that we take for granted every day. Having lived in the U.S. for 30 years and naturalized in 2006, I knew as a citizen that was my one obligation and duty. And in the last couple of years, we've had some challenges in the state. Our state legislators have passed new voting laws that don't make the voting accessible to us common people. And so we need to go back to ground zero and understand when you take the civil rights and voting rights away from people, their voices cannot be heard. And that's one of the key reasons why I'm running.
Okay. So, as we've said before, Catherine and I both ran. I ran for office just this year, 2022. I ran for Superior Court Judge. I didn't win my race, and Catherine ran for Snellville City municipal elections. And during that time, we met Segun.
Right.
And after I lost my race, Segun called me very graciously, and we were having this very spirited conversation. And I was like, put a pin in this. I want to carry this on because we're starting a podcast, and I want to continue this conversation. And part of the conversation, Segun and I were talking about bridging the gap between African Americans and Africans here in the States. And more important, because even though we may be born different places, we have so much in common. You know, our children would be subject to the same life experiences. What goes on in our households may be different, but when they go out into the world, you know, they will experience some of the same things. So I wanted to kind of carry that conversation on and talk about how we, as a community, as different communities, can bridge that gap. And how do you see African Americans helping in what you're trying to do? And how, if that makes sense, like how do we fit in with what you're trying to do?
So first of all, I think the common thing is, well, let me even back up just to clarify. So first of all, yes, I am Nigerian. I'm also Caribbean. I'm always from St. Vincent. So I've lived, my influence is predominantly Nigerian, but I do have Caribbean.
You all
I know, right?
Different flavors, right? But, you know, one of the same common things I look at is when I look at the U.S. and I see the journey of the black community, it's a very similar journey, right? So we go far back as slavery. Of course, most people know most African countries were colonized, except for a couple, like Ethiopia.
And then they're going and trying to eliminate that knowledge, but go ahead.
So, of course, being in the Caribbean is the same thing, and whether you go to Europe or South America, journey for our city. The thing about it, what we have to understand is that we have different cultures as Black people.
That's right.
And we also have, we all came here in different ways.
Yes.
So for most people that come from Africa or Nigeria, or even from any other country that are Black, their experience is coming to experience a better life,
That's right.
right? A better opportunities. Being in a true democracy. I tell people this is the greatest democracy in the world. It has its flaws, but when we look at democracy across the world, this is the greatest because you can have a voice.
Right.
So that's where we start from. But because of the history, we all have a different perspective of things here. But we're still Black. But we should be able to have that conversation about our perspective
That's right.
and see how we can address our issues collectively, because the issues that every Black person experiences in this country are the same.
That's right.
That was
right.
that is so valid, and I think I shared this with you that coming from South Florida, growing up in the 70s and 80s, when my experience was when folks from the Caribbean and Africa came to the States, I think they've been given misinformation about Black Americans. That was my experience. And that they were told pretty much to stay away from us. And this is what I've been told from, back in, I would say like 80s and 90s. And then once folks from the Caribbean and Africans get here and they realize, oh, hey, wait a minute. We're all having this same Black experience in this country. I'm just a Black immigrant, but I'm having the same experience that my Black American cousins are having.
That's right.
But what I had experienced was initially when they're coming over, they're being told by other communities, stay away from Black people, stay away from Black Americans. But then after being here for a while, they realize, oh, if someone stops me, they don't know that I'm from Senegal. They don't know that I'm from Jamaica. They see a Black person. They see a Black person. And I think it took a while for the communities to recognize that. And I know when you and I were talking, you shared with me that you had some experiences with Black Americans in college that were negative. Do you mind talking about that? I know it was a private conversation.
Well, yeah, no, I don't mind sharing.
Okay.
I mean, this is what it's real about, is how do we improve better so that
That's right.
our kids don't have the same experience.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And, some of the experiences I had in college was in working. My work ethic was really strong. And I believe a lot of, and I won't say I think all people have strong work ethics, but I think because of where I had come from, it was a different perspective for me. Because I wasn't going back. I wanted to make sure I succeeded.
Okay. Right.
So sometimes the things that weren't blatantly obvious to me, in terms of racism, I don't always see it. So I had experiences where some of my colleagues in college asked, "You don't act Black." And yes, you don't act Black. And I struggled. I said, "What does that
Can I
What
just
does that
say?
mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm nowhere trying to minimize that experience, but as a young Black child growing up in a Black community, I was called an Oreo.
Really?
Yeah. And told that I didn't act Black, that I talked like a white girl.
See?
I mean, if we're just having real conversations, I'm keeping it real.
Same experience.
That goes across a lot of us families. That's happened to some of my siblings, that they speak a certain way,
Yeah.
act a certain way, and so you must be, what does that mean though? Because I'm educated.
And I think part of it was, at the time, the experience of the civil rights movement, up until that point when I was in school, there was a certain kind of consciousness as a Black person. They talked about issues from the perspective of the civil rights movement. I didn't have that perspective.
Okay.
Right? I came in as immigrant looking for an opportunity.
What area did you go to college? What area?
Akron, Ohio.
Ohio. Okay.
Yeah, so Akron is the recent police shooting.
Yeah.
That young man, over 60 plus bullets. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
So what was your experience in Akron? Because how old were you when you came to the
18.
States? You were 18. Now, so you were born in
I was born in Lagos, Nigeria.
in Nigeria. So where did the St. Lucian mom?
Well,
how did-
my parents met in England, moved back to Nigeria. But
okay.
then I grew up in England for,
Okay.
we moved back to England for 7 years.
Okay.
Moved back to Nigeria.
Okay. So coming from, and how long were you in Nigeria?
11 years.
11 years. So those were your formative years, were spent in Nigeria, in a country where the country is run by people who look like you.
Yes.
In every aspect of government, in your educational system, folks look like you. And then you come to the States for college. Is that right?
Yep.
So you come to the States for college and you're in Akron, Ohio. Do you know what the racial makeup is of Akron?
Oh, wow, that's a good question.
Okay.
What
What did it feel like when you were there?
It probably was about 20% non-white.
Okay.
Might be more now.
Okay.
I believe that.
Definitely more.
And so, how was that coming from Nigeria, where you see yourself in everything from advertising to school to people in political power to coming to a campus? Was there a transition or a culture shock?
There's always culture shock.
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
true.
Culture shock is really being away from what you're familiar with.
True.
But I think what I loved about the college environment was that the community as a whole reached out to me.
Okay.
So it wasn't necessarily, it was the Akron community reached out to you. So we had a women's group that supported us. We had the international program and made sure we navigated our way. And then, of course, I've always had an interest in the Black journey. So I was very close to the Black cultural center. It gave me that broad experience.
Okay. I have to ask you this. And I know we kind of gotten off the topic. We just do that because we have conversation.
I know.
But
I
I've read that you have been active in like the Democratic Party, and so how did that? So you became naturalized in '06. Were you active in politics before you became naturalized?
Yes,
Okay.
I was when I was in Michigan.
And what gravitated you towards the Democratic Party?
Oh, good question.
Because sometimes some immigrant communities are very conservative.
Correct.
And so they gear towards conservative policies.
Yeah.
So you not only embraced democratic ideals, like you were active. You are active.
Yes, I am.
So, like,
Well, I think
what attracted you to
the fact that inclusion.
Okay.
The Democratic Party promotes inclusion.
Okay.
Regardless of your background, your race, your religion, your ethnicity, your culture, your sexual orientation, the Democratic Party truly encourages diversity, which I did not see in the Republican Party.
Okay.
I'm very conservative on certain values, but I
On a
do believe-
personal level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
personal. But when you look at what government should be doing, it should be inclusive.
That's right. That's right. That's very important.
Yeah.
That's very important. Wow. You said you were in Michigan?
Yes, I was.
What part of Michigan?
Detroit.
You know she's from the D.
Where did you go?
I know, huh? That's all.
Yeah, how long were you there?
20 years. I graduated in '94 and graduated straight out of Akron, Ohio, and got a job in Southfield, Michigan, and moved there.
So you spent the majority of your life in
The U.S.
Yeah.
Yes, I have, and Detroit.
And Detroit.
And Detroit. So I consider Detroit.
Could you say you've
home.
been in the States 30 years?
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
the majority of your life was
34,
spent in Detroit. That's
So you were doing a lot of your movement and your work in Detroit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And most of it was community based. So I was a big brother in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Recognized by the Black.
Thank you, Shagan.
And I still
And
stay.
Detroit.
I still have in touch with the young men I met with. Happen to be twins.
Okay.
Yeah, and then always involved. I went to a predominantly Nigerian.
Can I just say that I don't want to. I don't want you to gloss over that because that's a commitment. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
When you sow into the lives of young people, that's a commitment. So thank you.
Right.
And I believe in that because people did the same for me.
That's right.
So you
It's
have to,
village.
yes, we all have to do that.
I love that.
So that's how high I was committed. Also in Detroit, I was going to predominantly Nigerian Congregational Church, and I represented the church on the mayors of Detroit's faith-based community platform.
Okay.
And I felt it was important as an immigrant community reaching out to engaging the local leadership.
Okay.
Because there's sometimes that we can't truly navigate very well. You have to engage. And then also, was involved in a lot of community drives, food drivers, and holy drives. Always active, Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
I was also very involved in Meals on Wheels.
And then you came to Georgia, and you hit the ground running in Georgia.
Yeah. And what I knew what I was going to do when I came to Georgia. Right. So
Okay.
I immediately signed up for the Democratic Party. It wasn't even a question. I knew where I was going. I knew what I was going to do. Made sure I inserted myself in the party, participated, volunteered. And when the opportunity came, I ran for Gwinnett County School Board.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Now, what made you run for the school board?
So I've always been an educator.
Okay.
I always loved.
You were part-time adjunct professor.
Yes.
I did a little research.
So both in the community college and then also university.
Okay.
I did that
What
along
did
with my other hustles.
Right. What did you teach? Because Shagan's an IT guy.
Yeah, pretty
Engineering.
much computer engineering courses and software classes, just the basics, Word, Access, the whole suite, networking. So anything IT related was primarily where I went. So it was great for me because I took my work experience into the classroom.
So,
I did have a question
Go ahead.
that I was
Go
thinking
ahead,
of as you were
girl.
talking about that. Do you have any, so bringing that IT and your education experience together, do you have any plans in your platform for young people in education and that technical education and how you'd like to see that play out?
Yeah. So one of the opportunities I had working for I used to work for General Motors in Detroit, and I transferred down here.
Okay.
Because General Motors started an initiative where they looked at bringing jobs back to the U.S. And we're talking technical experience jobs, because they understood that there was a shortage of jobs, especially for those who are graduating from college. So they opened, yes, in the U.S. So they opened 5 IT innovation centers across the country. One included here in Atlanta, which is in Roswell. And General was committed, which they did, to hiring 30% of their workforce at the innovation centers straight out of college.
Wow.
that's good.
And then they brought experienced people like myself to the innovation center so we can mentor and train them. And that's what moved me down here to Atlanta.
Okay.
All right.
So it's for me, it was a very vital part, not just with my experience teaching the profession, but also mentoring in the profession.
What could you do in the legislature to gear more students towards the
So Georgia,
technology
Technology.
field?
Inside and all
yeah,
that.
Georgia is uniquely positioned because of the schools, the great schools that we have in terms of technology. So I think we have to build stronger partnerships and making sure we do more in the high school level.
Okay.
And prepare our high school kids, even if they're not going to college, they need to have the skills that they need with certificates that can get them good paying jobs
That's right.
and make Georgia attractive to IT companies. It's done everywhere else in the world. I mean, we're competing. We're no longer just competing within the U.S. We're competing with global resources
Globally.
I mean, when you look at the workforce in most companies, you see about 60 or 50% of their workers are overseas.
Yeah. So speaking of that, kind of go into a little bit more as to what your platform is and what you plan on doing for your constituents.
Yeah, so the key thing, and I mentioned voting is important, but we need to look at other areas. Healthcare. It's just with the wealth this country has, I don't understand why we don't have a health system that cares for all, not just for the few privileged. We need to look at empowering ourselves economically. small business like Ionie's Kitchen.
That's right.
I patronize them because
Yeah.
they make great food. And we should empower the small businesses, make sure that they have the resources they need, and the education, because education is important, right? So now to set up your business, how to access funding, how to market to your clientele. So I want to make sure that I'm in a position that I can empower those who want to be small business owners or have an idea. And then, of course, education for me is prime,
Right.
right? We have to have a strong educational agenda in the state that will transition and give opportunities to all Georgians and all those others. Right? And I don't talk too often about this, but as an immigrant, I think we have to do better. I know it's on the federal level, but we have to do better with the pipeline or transition from being an immigrant to a U.S. citizen, because we all add value to our communities.
That's right.
How could we do that?
There needs to be a better path for immigrants. The path that we use today is very old and ancient. When you go to other countries around the world globally, there is a transition. Even if you don't want to be a U.S. citizen, but taxpaying, have a strong taxpaying base. I mean, a lot of immigrants that come to this state are hardworking. We don't want anyone paying working under the table.
Right. Yeah.
Let's get those tax dollars so we can invest those tax dollars back into our
Yeah.
society,
That's
build
right.
build more schools.
And some communities have got they get these the taxpayer ID numbers, and they work off of the taxpayer ID numbers. I don't know, but I know that some are doing that rather than like working on the table. So that some money is being paid in. I'm always concerned that may be exploitive of a group. In that are they paying them fair wages? Are they working legal hours? But that's another conversation. That's another conversation.
Tune in for that one.
But in all, I want to be transparent. I want people to know I'm approachable.
Right.
Your leaders serve you.
That's right.
You don't serve them. So we might not agree on everything. I'll say we're not going to agree on everything,
Right.
but I'll listen. And if it makes sense, we'll do something.
That's right.
Right? And that's what leadership is truly about.
Do you have like a coffee with a candidate? Do you have any place where folks can come and talk to you?
Thank you. So I'll start by saying my website is segunforgeorgia.com.
Could you spell that?
SEGUN Georgia.com. And then all my handles, all my social media handles, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Okay.
Hopefully one day I'll do Twitter. Sorry, I'll do
TikTok.
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 Thank you. You know what I was going. Hopefully I'll do TikTok. But it's important that people follow me, check online, and then we'll find out about what I'm doing. But yes, I am going to do some coffee and talks and outreach to the community. Because I want people to know who I am.
That's right.
Because your election is what, November 8th?
November 8th.
All right. And,
Yeah.
So
And will you have an opponent?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And what's the makeup of your district? Is it considered heavily Republican, heavily Democratic?
So it's a new district.
Okay.
But looking at brand new district. But looking at the history for the within the district, Democrats have voted 64%. I'll say 64 to 36%.
what cities make up your district?
Grayson, Loganville, and Gwinnett, and then a little bit of Lawrenceville.
Loganville, Gwinnett side?
Yes.
Loganville, okay.
So everything Gwinnett.
Everything Gwinnett.
Everything is Gwinnett.
Okay.
And if someone watching this interview wants to help Segun get elected, what can they do?
Go to my website, segunforgeorgia.com.
And at this point, what do you need the most help with?
Outreach,
Okay.
phone banking, of course canvassing. Those are going to be huge for the campaign. So So I'm revving that up right now.
So will you be door knocking?
Door knocking.
All right.
Have to meet the
Yeah,
community.
have to meet the community. How large? Do you know how large your district is?
We have about 43,000 voters.
43,000. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're gonna knock on 43,000 doors?
I didn't say we were knocking on 40. We'll reach out to 40,000.
43,000 persons, not households.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's doable. That's doable. That's doable. Yeah, I am too.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm going to finish up this food.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
It tastes great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for stepping up to run.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for serving our community. Thank you for talking to Karen and Kat, conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, when I become state rep, I'm looking forward to coming back here and having another
All
conversation.
right. And yes, because you're going to be telling us about all the great legislation that you will be implementing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Segun.
Thanks a lot.
And thank you for joining us on Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green.
And I'm Catherine Hardrick, and we are here with Miss V of Ionie's Caribbean Kitchen in Grayson. Thank you so much for having us.
And Miss V, how long have you been here at this location? 14 years. And what do you serve?
Well, we have extremely Caribbean food. It's enormous menu. You have your oxtail, your jerk chicken, pepper steak, pineapple chicken, jerk pork, jerk chicken, stewed chicken. We serve just about every Jamaican and Caribbean.
Okay.
I love the curry chicken.
And so today I had the rice and peas and the stew and the cabbage. And so that was really good. And I was waiting on the curry vegetables. Was the curry vegetables?
It's cooked to order.
Cooked to order.
It
So
takes about 15 or so minutes. You could have had it because you've been here for so long.
that's true. That's true.
you're
My
doing
next
it
visit. My next visit.
So definitely make sure you guys come on out and check out Ionie's Caribbean Kitchen. It's at 1142 Adams Highway in Grayson, Georgia.